Dorothy Crean, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Brendan.
Thank you very much for coming all the way in from West Sligo.
No problem.
Oh, good. Everyone's keeping well out there.
Yeah, they sure are.
And Thursday is the day the Sligo Weekender comes out. So you're the owner of that. So is Thursday kind of like gets a little bit calmer then during the week? Is that
Definitely a lot calmer than a Wednesday is for us. Yeah, it is.
It gets a bit easier. And you can take the weekend off then, is it?
It gets easier until a Saturday.
Yes, okay. So
Yeah.
say with a wry smile.
Yeah.
So I suppose for anyone that doesn't know you, and I suppose I don't even know all of your background either, tell us a little bit about, you know, where you grew up and what was it like, family life?
Well, I'm Sligo through and through, Brendan.
Okay.
Born in Collins in West Sligo. I now live in Dromore West with my son, Dylan. Came from a farming background.
Okay.
There was 9 of us in family. I'm the middle child, the forgotten one.
As always.
So I had to fight for myself a lot of the time. Went to school in Collins.
And were you on the farm now? Were you a farmer?
Well, not by choice.
Okay, I think that's a lot with farming
Yeah.
families. I always say didn't grow up on a farm, but we were surrounded. I love going farming, but then I'd say it's different if you're living on one.
Yeah,
so
very
you weren't
different.
first out in the morning.
I was, because I was told to be first out.
You no choice.
We all would have input now, in fairness, and I'll always say it did stand to us because all of us are hard workers.
Yes.
But definitely not there by choice. Definitely
Okay.
not, Brendan.
So then after school, you off to college. So was this to go, right, I have a business interest, or was it like, I just need to get away from the farm for a while?
It was, my mother and father would always have pushed education on us,
Okay.
to be fair. And it was them that persuaded me to go to Sligo IT. I had no interest in going to college at all. I had no interest in being in school, only for the crack.
Yeah, well, sure. No harm
So I
in
went
that.
off to Sligo IT and studied construction studies.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to how this links into owning a paper.
It didn't really link, to be fair. I finished up after a year, didn't go so well. So they persuaded me again to go back to college. So I went back to do marketing, done 4 years there, and I actually really, really liked it.
And this was in the IT as well?
Yeah, this was in the IT
It shows
too.
the variety in the IT.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
it
It's
really
amazing to
does,
have on
yeah.
our doorstep, like to have that access to all these different courses. So you've done the 2 courses. And what made you go into construction studies?
I just randomly picked it, to be honest
Just
with you.
randomly picked
Yeah,
it?
I'd love to tell you there's a story, but there wasn't. I randomly picked it, and it wasn't for me. And the only thing I passed in that course was communications. And I remember a lecturer tried to persuade me to do the repeats, to go back and do second year. And I was like, there's not a point, because...
Just
But
wasn't your thing.
communications did stand to me, to be fair.
I can see why, that's gone through.
Yeah.
And so after you finished marketing, did you go straight into the Sligo Weekender back then, or what was the
No,
career
I
path?
applied for a job in Norwest Express. It was Norwest Extra then. And I got it, and I went in to do sales, and I was so nervous even picking up the phone because I wasn't used to being on the phone.
Yeah.
But I was a bit dodgy in the beginning, but once I sold my first ad, it grew on me after a while.
Okay.
And I stayed with them for 4 years. 2011, I applied for a job in the Weekender, and then the rest is history, as they say.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, you've worked your way right through. What was kind of your favourite job in there? Obviously, before you were the boss, like, what was your favourite kind of department?
My favourite job then is my favourite job now. I love selling advertising.
Right.
I love selling advertising. And when Kevin made me general manager, actually, Brendan, he took me off advertising, and that killed me to hand over my customers and not to be able to sell ads. So once I bought the paper, I was like, I'm back in advertising
Okay,
again.
cool. No one can tell you otherwise, so you can decide
Yeah,
what
that's
you're
true,
doing.
yeah.
And like, it's funny because a lot of people, I mean, I did work in sales myself, and I it can be hard doing cold calls. What is it you love? You love the hustle of it and meeting people and chatting people, or just bargaining around and seeing how things work?
Yeah, I love all of it, to be honest, and I love when you sell the ad.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. There's days when you go in and I mightn't be sitting there going, I love this, because everyone's saying no to you for their different reasons. But when you get the sale, then it's all worth it.
Yes,
Do you know?
They kind of said that one no is the thing you focus on rather than the 9, or the one yes, I should say, rather than 9
Yeah,
no's.
exactly, exactly. And even other advertising people coming in and them starting at the bottom and seeing how they progress. I even love that
You
part.
enjoy.
Yeah.
You help out with them and give them advice.
Yeah, I think so. And
Yeah.
it works both ways. They sometimes might give me advice as well, do you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're coming in from outside and they can see it from a different perspective, do you
Yeah,
know?
no, it's very true, and I think a lot of bosses and places don't see that. You know, or maybe a younger
Yeah.
person has some brilliant ideas. You know, I see that a lot of places where maybe just sit back and listen to them. So, as you said, you're learning from them as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But yeah, no, that's interesting with the ads, and I've dealt with you for years in different businesses with ads, and you know, you were good. Like you could
Thank you, Bridget.
twist a deal brilliantly, like, and you just felt,
Yeah.
yeah, she's looking after me. So
Yeah.
it's definitely ringing true. And what job did you maybe not like so much over the years? Because you've done pretty much everything at this stage.
I definitely have done everything in the Weekender. Probably dealing with memoriam cards. I don't like that end where they're so sad, and I'd nearly end up crying because of their sadness, even though I'm only going by a story. Do you know, I don't have any connection to it.
Yes, yes.
So definitely dealing with memoriam cards, I find really hard.
Okay, and so they have to tell you the whole story, and they don't just send it
No,
in
I
anymore.
don't.
They ring and tell you some of the details.
And some of them they just come in and they do them, and other of them really wants to talk because it's a really hard thing for them to do. Now, I don't deal with them normally. That's another girl that deals with them.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be the one person who's able for that, do you know?
Yeah, I know. It's something you don't think
And
of with a paper.
That's definitely my weakness, is dealing with memoriam
Yeah,
care.
you'd forget that that's someone's job.
Yeah.
And as you said, people coming in who maybe haven't talked so much about this, especially to strangers. So that's something we probably wouldn't all think of.
No.
With the paper. So your progression, tell us, like I said, 2011 to now, 10 years. That's some skyrocket.
I started off with selling ads.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I didn't actually like the Weekender because everything had rules.
We are live, you know that now.
Everything had rules, and I wasn't used to rules, really. So I just did what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So for me to sell you an ad, Brendan, I just had to fill out this form, and then I'd get someone to sign the form. I was like, what is this about? I just want to sell the ads. But through time, anyways, I'd say after 2 or 3 months, I settled in. And I was there probably 5 or 6 years, and I queued for Gareth Brooks tickets on O'Connell Street.
Okay.
I got my tickets.
This story is taking a weird turn.
Was delighted with life. I'd come back to the Weekender that morning, had no sleep, and the 2 directors was down from Wexford, and Fiorca said to me, they were down, and I was in my head, we were both having a discussion, what were they doing there? Anyways, they called me in, and I was thinking, what have I done? What's going on?
Were you normally a troublemaker? Was that it?
I'd work myself into situations rather than cause trouble, Brendan. But Kevin and David anyways called me in. There had been a job going for advertising manager, but I hadn't applied for it because I didn't feel personally I'd experience for it. And Kevin said to me, you have the job. And I said, but I didn't actually apply for the job, Kevin. And I was really confused with that. And he said, no, we want you to have it and we think you're able for it. And I said, I have no experience in this at all, Kevin, and you could live to regret it. And I was very, very nervous about it. But anyways, he said, we'll give you the training and all the rest of it. And that was very hard. That was the biggest adjustment for me, to be fair, because I'd worked alongside them people and all of a sudden I was their boss.
Yeah,
do you know?
yeah.
But thankfully they were very good to me. And that worked out. And then January 2019, we were back again in a different meeting, and he said he wanted to make me general manager. And then at that point, I was like, whoa.
You definitely hadn't applied for that one, I'd say.
No, I
okay.
didn't.
You're quite happy where you were.
And like the newsroom and everybody worked, so even though we were all together, we worked separately.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So that was a bigger jump for me. But thankfully, once again, they rode in behind me. And again, that was history as well. And Kevin came to me, I'd say it was the beginning of, must have been, I'd say 2.5 years ago now, and he said he wanted to sell the Weekender, and he was wondering was I interested in buying it, and I said, well, the interest is great, but even if I did, I don't have money. So thanks, Kevin, but it's not going to happen. Yeah. And he came back to me various times, and then the last time he the whole way that I would be able to buy it, and I was like, actually, I'm liking this idea now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I had said to my friend a good while before that, one day I want to own that Weekender, and she rolled her eyes and she was thinking, you do.
Yeah.
But anyways, then I went ahead and bought it. I was so nervous because I was thinking, am I doing the right thing? And the worst part for me was telling the people I worked with, because at that stage people was, I think, maybe having suspicions it was going to be sold, but nobody had ever thought, well, Dot's going to buy it.
Yeah.
And
it was a complete shock to everyone when you told them. Like,
oh,
and not an insulting way, what were you doing? But just like, would never have seen it coming.
A complete shock. It definitely was. But thankfully, again, they were so good to me. I can't even say actually how good they were to me at the time, but then COVID hit, Brendan, and they supported me unbelievably then. And at the time, even though COVID was an awful hard time in the Weekender, because the right people was there, I'll never forget their loyalty to me.
Well, I think even from listening to you, and even as I said, me dealing with you, I think you are the person that's causing all this goodness to come back on you. Because I know you've done it, I know personally, and I know loads of people with good stories. And like when I heard you bought the paper, and I was going, what? And again, I was going, you just never kind of thought that way. And as I said, even your co-workers thought that way. But I can only imagine there's nothing like someone that has a real genuine interest in the business to be the one to direct it and run it. Like.
Yeah, I love the Sligo Weekender.
So, yeah, and you love owning it now? Is it as much fun?
There's probably days when it's not as much fun, but to be fair, we have a really good team there now, Brendan, and like along with me working with them, I'd also say they're my friends, and like outside work, we could go out on a Saturday night and we'd have the best time. We come in on a Monday morning, there's no word about it, so there's obviously we work together and we have our rows, but then we also have a great relationship and great friendships there.
Good. Well, that's.
Do you know?
I've always wanted to know the stories. I always say this shows me just being nosy as well. So that's fascinating to hear the way it all worked out. So now I want to find out more about what it's like to run a paper. Okay, so what's like a normal week in the Sligo Weekender?
Well, that's the first thing, Brendan. There's no such thing as a normal week. Definitely not. And that's what I suppose, well, I love, and I'd say everyone in the Weekender loves, and any newspaper loves. Every week is different. But our week goes from a Thursday to a Wednesday evening. Okay. So Thursday in advertising is you decide what features you're going to do and where the revenue is going to come from. Okay. The newsroom have planned their stories, but they might have done it beforehand as well, but sometimes that'll be the same with advertising. And then we also will cover courts on a Thursday. Okay. Jerry McLaughlin does the courts for us on a Thursday. Then a Friday, you just tip it away. No, not pressure. And Monday be very similar as well. Tuesday is all go.
Okay, so it's gathering everything, I presume. Like,
yeah,
you know,
and everything is coming together. Ad copy, the people that said yes to your ads, you're getting ads. The newsroom are putting together their stories, full of pressure, and there's not too many chats on a Tuesday in the weekend.
It's not many lunch breaks either, I imagine.
No. There's a lot of lunches at desks on a Tuesday. And then Wednesday is all go. The paper's fully been put together. Yeah. You're waiting for your last minute ads to come in, and you're waiting for your up-to-date news stories.
Now, I never knew anyone that I did work for when I was asking for ads that would have left them late now, would they? Would
No.
They wouldn't have left it till the last minute, nearly slip it in the door. Like, I'm sure you were well used to that.
If we got an ad at 5 to 3, we go to print at 3 o'clock, we'd still take it. But the later it is, the more pressure you're under.
Yeah. And I know this probably is a bit of a childish question, but like, okay, I presume the editor obviously doesn't read the whole thing. Is there, like, everyone is in charge of their own section and department to check
it? So Peter's our editor, and he came from Wexford, and he's amazing. He's so good, and he never shies away from work. But at the same time, there's no way that him or any other editor in the country could manage that. Yeah. So he just put together the paper for us, and whoever writes the story, someone else will proof it. Someone else will proof it, but there's no actual actual sub-editing. Everyone helps in, because Sligo Weekender is a small team. There's only 11 of us, so everybody has to help.
So a whole paper is put together by 11 people?
Yeah.
Every week?
Yes, every week.
That is busy.
Yeah.
And as the owner then, like, you know, the buck stops with you, but what do you find most difficult within running a paper?
Most people might say dealing with the staff and stuff, but for me personally, is the core pages. And this is something that's natural for everyone, but I hate when people come and ask me to leave out their court story because we don't do it. So it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's my mother, my father, my sister, my brother. If you end up in court and it's covered by a Weekender journalist, it will end up in the paper. And I suppose I'm listening to them why they don't want it in, because their jobs, people just know it's embarrassing. So I feel bad saying no, but at the same time, we have to be transparent and it has to be fair across the board. You can't leave it out for someone down the road and then push it in for someone else, do you know?
I suppose you just have to detach your human side to this is an entity of public media and that's what's covered and that's what's put out there.
Yeah, and when you explain it to people as well, they are fair and they do understand once you explain it to them properly.
Okay, so I suppose moving on to, you know, well, people call it modern age with papers and that. Like, do you think people that would argue, I mean, I wouldn't argue it, but do you think there's a place still for papers, or do you think it's a dying business?
I'm definitely biased on this.
Well, I would wonder why, but I'm just interested to know. Like,
absolutely, definitely. Like, I remember back in 2005, people would have said newspapers are gone, and newspapers are still here in 2021, Brendan. And do I think they'll be here in 2031? I definitely do. Like, it is a traditional means, but that doesn't mean because it's traditional it's going to be cut out. Like, for us in the Weekender, our readers buy the paper because they know that information is accurate, they know it's reliable, and they know it's local, and they're not going to get it anyplace else. Like, again, Jerry McLaughlin, for a second mention, he does our local legend story. You're not going to get them stories anyplace
They're amazing.
else.
I read Eddie Henry's one today. It's fascinating. Someone you half know and you go, oh, that's really interesting.
That's exactly
Tara McGowan a while back, Kieran Quinn, just to name a few. Like, they're really
They're not
interesting.
acknowledged in any other way. And you're not going to get that stuff anyplace. And same with the court stories. You're not going to get them up on social media. So it is harder. There is more ways to get information and to get news, but it doesn't mean that newspapers will be gone.
Well, I mean, I think, like, even for this show, I would read the papers as well, because they're a great source, all in one thing, like, to find out all the news. And, like, I have little notes at the end I read out.
And that is gathered from... it is reliable news.
Yeah, and, like, in fairness, you are covering events or festivals or, you know, like, you know, something a local charity is doing. So you're helping all these people to do this. So I suppose people helping the papers, whether it's yourselves or other papers or magazines or whatever, you're funding employment. You're also helping indirectly, maybe your own GAA club, maybe your family member's business. Yeah. So I think there is a future for sure. And, like, I work in marketing as well. And I know some people say, oh, don't be advertising there. I say, well, there's always a place for advertising happen if you do it smart and do it right. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what I would see. So and I know you can get your paper now. You can download it, or you can read it on an app as well.
Yeah, on Press Reader, you can download it on that.
Yeah, so anyone around the world can read it there.
Exactly,
so you're moving on in that regard, anyways,
Yeah.
as well. So that's good. And I suppose you bought the paper in 2019.
Yeah.
And then, of course, a year later, lockdown.
Yes.
So how was lockdown for you running a paper?
For the very beginning, it was extremely stressful. March, April time for us in the Weekender was awful, but with every negative, there's a positive. So I talked to the staff in the Weekender March the 14th, 2020, and they promised and they held on to the promise they would do everything to stand by the Weekender and make sure we came out the other side. Probably going to cry. Actually, definitely going to cry. They were so good to me, and I'll never forget it. And like for March and April, for me, Brendan, myself, I remember some days I'd be talking to people, I'd get off the phone, I'd sit home and cry and think, how did I end up in this mess, and how did I think I would run this paper? But then we came out the other side of it, and like people were buying papers that never bought papers. Like people weren't going to see their parents, so then automatically they buy the paper to give them news. And thankfully our circulation held up. Advertising did fall, and it hasn't come back fully yet.
Yeah,
but that's because businesses doesn't have the money. Do you know what I mean?
No, but they might have things to plug or advertise, I suppose. So that will come back in
so
time.
it is coming back, but it's not what it was. But our circulation never went, which was a massive help to us.
And again, like we're a neutral show, and we love all the local mediums. And like, in fairness, during the lockdown, I think all the local outlets really they pivoted with some amazing news articles, and even your stories, as we talked about, that kind of stuff, or even old pictures, supplements and things like that. There's some great stuff. You go, oh well, and I'd say a lot of people maybe got back into the paper world.
Exactly, and for the sports news, like that was awful hard on Liam, because how do you come up with sports news if there's nothing going on?
Yeah,
do you know?
No, and he was writing his own blog as well.
Yeah, he was doing his
he
own
also
blog.
put a picture of me after losing the county final, so that wasn't very nice. Down on my knees, nearly crying. So thanks, Liam, for that. So the Weekender moving on, it's going stronger, as strong as ever. And have you any new projects coming up in the next 12?
Well, we had a book out last year, volume 1 of the Sligo Weekender.
Yes.
So we're going to bring that back out again this year, and then focus on the paper, advertising, and focus on news and stuff.
Very good. Now, I personally know, and I think a lot of people know, and even your story tonight, you are a local supporter of not just everything local, but everyone you deal with.
Yeah.
But like, what do you love most about Sligo? What's your favourite thing about Sligo?
What I love most about Sligo? There's so much to do in Sligo. Like, it is a small county compared to other counties, but it doesn't matter where you are. If you want to do supping in a scrone, you can do supping in a scrone. You can go down to Grange and do horse riding. You can climb Knocknarea if you don't have any money and you just want to pass away the day. There's so much to do in it. And I don't think we fully appreciate it until you go someplace else and you come back, or it's locked down and you're looking for things to do on your doorstep.
Yeah, well, I think I said this to other guests here. Sligo is one of the best lockdown counties in
Yeah, it
Ireland.
definitely is,
Because no matter where you were within your 2K or your 5K, there was always some nice walk, cycle.
Yeah.
There was water to do activities on. So I think we were very lucky. Or
we
even
were
to walk
lucky.
and just look at the natural beauty.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we're very lucky at that. Now, you're not a very negative person at all, but would there be anything that would frustrate you in general that you'd see around the county?
Buildings closed down, vacant buildings. Now, not just in Sligo town, throughout Sligo town, it's such a waste. Derelict buildings, which is probably the same thing. That building in Ballysadare, the old
big,
apartments.
huge apartments, yeah.
And then behind
Sad to
it is an amazing river, and you get a glimpse. When I'm going home in the evening time, I get like a 2-second glimpse of that river. I'm like, can someone knock that building so we can see it?
Or else people would love to live and look out at that beautiful view as well, I suppose.
Exactly.
So either or, but I know it's a pity to see things like that. And then if I give you a cheque tonight now for €1 million, what would be the first thing you'd do in Sligo? You can't go. You can't leave
go
now.
To Bally.
Go to Bally. You can do that at the end. Ballyhon, is it? Ballymote.
Ballina probably. But what's the first thing I do? I think teenagers are lacking stuff to do in Sligo. Not the young teenagers, and not people in their, I'll say 19, 20, like the 15 to 18-year-old group. The ones that are too old for teenage discos, but they can't go into a pub yet. I think massive investment is needed for them.
Yeah, I think it's so true. And there was a couple of us talking about this recently, and there could be something starting to move in that whole world as well. But as you said, I think it's time maybe to highlight it more. And we love one of the shows this before our season ends in July, that we would bring on some teenagers and talk to them and say, tell us what you're thinking of. So we might do something with you on that when the time comes. So now to finish out our interview, we do a little quick fire round of just fun little questions, and it gives us a little picture of what Dorothy's really like, okay? So I'm going to call them out, and you just answer as quick as you can. So, favourite movie?
This is very easy. Team America.
Teemo. It's a random one, but yeah, brilliant. Favourite band?
Favourite band? Random again. Whistling Donkeys or the Wolf Toads.
Whistling Donkeys, I've heard of them. Enniscrone or Dunmore and Beach?
Enniscrone.
Keep it local.
Enniscrone.
Surfers or Shams?
Probably Buffs.
Buffs, fair enough. Who would you rather have lunch with, Eamon Cunningham and EJ's or Niall Delaney?
I'd have to pick Eamon Cunningham on that.
Eamon, I think it'd be a good crack there. Now, not that Niall wouldn't be, but you know what I mean. I'd say. Favourite TV show?
Favourite TV show? I don't really have one. I won't watch.
Too busy?
Yeah, I won't watch a lot of TV. I'm
so then you won't answer my next question. So, a TV show you hate the most? Was there ever a TV show you hated?
Fair City.
Oh, fair enough. You knew that one. Pints or shots?
Shots.
Dance or chat?
A mixture.
Four Lights or bistro?
Definitely Four Lights.
Cocktails and Lilies or champagne and Ellabon?
Cocktails and Lilies.
Okay. Yeah. Hawkswell or the model?
Hawkswell.
And your favourite saying?
Favourite saying? Probably go, go, go.
Well, that sums you up brilliantly.
Yeah.
Dorothy, we've known each other a good bit over the years. I never really had a proper chat like this to you. It's been lovely chatting to you. You're an amazing person. You're a real asset to the town, the county, and everything you do. And the way you obviously look after everyone in your business, it's a credit to you. And that's why where you are, because they've come back to help you because you were so good to them. Thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thanks yourself.
And we'll have you again some other time for sure.